So awaken the new feminine paradigm. It's not just about women stepping into their power. However, my little boys are like, Mom, what about the men? What about the boys? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's also the feminine within men too, and awakening their feminine qualities. What is the feminine qualities to me? Is being heart-led, being a mom. Any mom knows that it's like she loves her children so much and she loves this planet so much and she wants to look after her children. It's nurturing. It's strong too, because if a child runs into the road, the mom's not just going to be soft and sweet. She's going to be running after her child and grabbing the child and making sure the child doesn't get ran over. Looking after the planet, looking after each other, after the future generations to come. So it's bigger than just women's empowerment. It's my empowered vision of equality for men and women and humanity to unite. At the center and the foundation is love, kindness, truth, honesty, being a good human, doing good things for the planet, awakening the new earth, awakening the new feminine paradigm. To me, it's all the same.
Welcome everyone to Soul Communication. I'm excited today to continue diving deep into the topics of consciousness. One of the conversations that I started many podcasts ago, and it's important to mention again, is how the divine feminine is rising these times. This transitional period where the feminine is really leading a lot of the spiritual movement forward. There's a lot to cover, and I am excited today to have a special guest, Schamet Horsfield. She is a clairvoyant, an intuitive guide, and a founder of Wounds to Wisdom Oracle School, as well as Awaken the Oracle Within. Welcome, Schamet. I'm so happy to have you, sister. I'm so excited to be on the summit that you're putting together end of April. We'll talk about that more. Schamet also is down under, all the way from one of my favorite places on earth, New Zealand. But before we dive in, I want to ask you, what excites you today?
Oh, yes. It's so great to be here. I'm so excited to be with you again. We had so much fun last time connecting. I feel like we're birds of a feather flying together and really awakening the new feminine paradigm together and soul sisters. And I feel like I've known you all my life. I'm just excited about being here with you.
I'm so happy to have you. We met in such weird circumstances, but it feels like sometimes these type of synchronicities happen for a reason. And I had few amazing guests on my podcast that just came out of nowhere. And I felt that same connection. But with you, it was like immediately, we need to do more. I know something big just got released or get imprinted. So maybe tell us more about that.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about the awakening of the new feminine paradigm. And I have just gone to print with 2 oracle decks. I'm a Gemini, so I have to do 2 at once. People usually do 1 at a time, but I am doing 2. And they're both the Wounds to Wisdom Oracle and Awaken the Oracle Within oracle decks. That is the body of work I've been teaching for many years. The Awaken the Oracle Within is a course I've been doing online for a little over 5 years. And the Wounds to Wisdom is work I've been doing pretty much my whole life, like 30 years as a healer. So it's a real culmination of all of my work, but it really got birthed from the awakening of the new feminine paradigm, which is the leadership summit that I'm doing, that you're in. And I'm so excited that you're one of the keynote speakers. And I'm really feeling excited and passionate about the times that we're living in. And because of all the darkness, the light shines brighter. And just like the phoenix rising up from the ashes, that is the divine feminine. Like, the more that people try to push us down, the stronger we become, the more resilient we become. And so I feel like this is the time for women to be rising up into their power, into their sacred divine feminine creativity, their power, their purpose. And so I'm really, really excited about the times that we are living in and the expression and the rising up of the sacred divine feminine.
So, what is a sacred divine feminine? How would you define it?
To me, I'm 50 years old, and over 30 years ago, I lived in a house with 7 women, and we called it the Goddess Palace, and we created a temple. And we had women's circles every month, and I think our youngest was around 12 years old, and the older wise women were in their 70s, the medicine women, and we would come together and we would share stories, and we had the storytellers, and really sharing that sacred, divine, feminine energy, the healer, the storytellers, the change makers, the medicine women, the weavers, the movers and the shakers, the it's women stepping into their sacredness, their intuition, their feminine power, and celebrating that and honoring that. Because let's face it, in this world, that hasn't really been honored and given the respect and the dignity that it deserves. Everyone admires all the different traditional roles, but what about the mother? The mother is such an important role. If it wasn't for our mothers, where would we be? The mother is the ultimate sacred, divine, feminine energy. And yeah, it's a big thing to put into words, but it's our intuition, it's our feminine ability to hold space, the space
Mm.
keepers, the ceremonialists that do ritual and ceremony. They're the therapists, the coaches, the healers, the light workers, anything that is feminine and also sacred. And we honor in this patriarchal world, we honor the priest, for example. Like the priest is known as a powerful man of God, a conduit, and someone that you go to when you want to connect with God. But what about the priestess? Where's the priestess? In a lot of ways, she's been pushed down and pushed into the underworld, and she hasn't been given the respect and the honor and the dignity that she deserves in this world that we live in currently. And so, my whole mission and my purpose is bringing these sacred, divine, feminine archetypes to the world and honoring them with dignity and respect and power, feminine power. So the sacred divine feminine, it's huge. This is actually the first oracle deck I started was the sacred divine feminine. And then she said, "Nope, you have to do wounds to wisdom oracle and then you have to do the awaken the oracle within." But she's still wanting to come through and she will. But it's going to be a little bit more of a longer journey. But she keeps speaking to me. She's like, "I want to be born too. Don't forget about me." But she comes through all of my work. The summit, I did a summit years ago called Awaken the Goddess Within. And so it really is an empowerment journey of women stepping into their sacred, divine, feminine power, which is their intuition and their direct connection to the sacred, to the divine. Like it's not just men that get to have that experience, right? It's through all that we do and all that we are.
Yeah, so beautiful. And I think it's, like you said, it's the time because if we look into ancient traditions, if we look in Atlantis, those civilizations that were in higher vibrational state were all mostly led by women. We know that the priestesses had much bigger role, and the high priestesses especially were the ones who conduits, keeping the gates open for other realms to manifest here. There were really important roles that the feminine collective was keeping, and it got lost. So we reclaiming our memories as those powerful priestesses. I think also the masculine, the divine masculine has also reoriented itself. because the way I see it, it has to come to a place of balance and integration. The polarities, dominance of the masculine has to come down, step into the heart versus the feminine, trust in the gifts it has and the intuition it has. And then they meet in the middle in this beautiful divine union. And first, we need to find an union within. And we do have the masculine and the feminine within us. So, how do we tame down that war? How do we balance it with the feminine side? I was on this journey when I stepped into a spiritual path where my masculine was very powerful and was a bit aggressive, I would say, and warrior. And I'm seeing how it's coming down now. Now that I've been doing the spiritual work, the divine feminine is stepping forward and they find that and balance. And I catch myself when I go into the war. And maybe you can talk a little more about it. I'm curious from all the work you've been doing, if you've been observing that as well.
Yeah, I've been in a relationship with my husband now since 1998, and we have 2 teenagers, 2 boys, and so I've got a lot of boy energy around me. Luckily, I have a female cat and a female dog to kind of balance things out, but I do notice that I have a lot of masculine energy running through me when I feel like there is injustice. And with everything that's been going on in the world, I can feel my warrior energy coming out. And it is a little bit more aggressive and strong. But it's also that is, to me, my sacred divine feminine as well, because we've been told that as a woman, you need to be soft, you need to be feminine. But actually, the sacred divine feminine energy is very strong and very powerful. And when it is backed into a corner or the boundaries are pushed on, it actually needs to be strong. And so I am feeling my fighting spirit, my sacred divine feminine kind of warrior woman stepping into this role of sacred divine feminine leader and saying, you know what, I can actually be a little aggressive. I can be a little bit irritated here because there is a lot of injustice happening. But yes, of course, men can be softer and women can be stronger, and back and forth. And I feel like it goes like this, where in my relationships with my boys and my husband, where they can be softer and I can be stronger, or I can be strong or softer and then they can be stronger. And there's a flow that happens. But I think it's really important for us to know that we can be sacred, divine, feminine women and be strong and be powerful and be a force to be reckoned with. Like the sacred, holy fire has been really strong in me with everything that's going on in the world. I'm like, okay, things need to get done. Okay, we're doing this Sacred Divine Feminine Leadership Summit. We're inspiring women to step into their power, into their roles of leadership, instead of just sitting back and not doing anything. And that is masculine energy, that sacred divine masculine energy to take action, right? So, yes, we have this energy within us, and we also are reclaiming our right, our sovereign right to our sacred holy fire. Our anger, even our rage is important. That's the fire and the motivation that makes things happen. Right, but absolutely. I have moments where I'm very vulnerable and I'm very soft, and then I have other moments where I'm very powerful and very strong. My husband and the kids, they have moments where they're really soft and vulnerable and sweet, and then they have other moments where they're strong. And I'm feeling that this time is the time where women can say, "Okay, I am going to be sovereign, and I'm going to claim my anger, and I'm gonna do something with it."
I think it's just finding that dynamic within our family structures where the men don't feel emasculated and the other way around. It's just finding that, like you said, that dance and rebalancing, recalibrating in that dance. But there's such a thing as I'm seeing that a lot, like in corporate world. I know we don't. talk about the world out there, but it's important where I'm also seeing women sometimes taking too much of that masculine energy on and becoming so
Yeah, true. Yeah, I agree
like
with you there. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, let's get back to being women and wearing our dresses and our makeup and being beautiful and being soft. Can we be strong? Can we be fiery and be women at the same time and not be men? But again, the masculine and the feminine energy is within each and every one of us. So if a woman is feeling that more kind of masculine expression, then at the same time, are we to judge that? Maybe that really is who she is, and it's coming across as being like a man, but that's actually authentically where her energy's at. And then you've got men that I sometimes I can't even tell if they're a man or a woman. They're so feminine, and but they're being authentically who they are. And so I think this new paradigm is new because we are coming into this new energy where the energies that we're embodying are masculine and are feminine within each of our expressions of who we are. And it's like, somehow it's like, who are we to judge? Let's just allow people to be who they are and be free in their expression. And I've got men in my life that are so feminine and oh my god, they're so soft and sweet and they're gorgeous and they're just so feminine. And then I've got women in my life that are just like, whew, they are so badass and strong. And that's who they are. They're just authentically being who they are. So I think it's important not to get caught up in the judgment of that energetic either.
absolutely. And we're not going to go into the gender identities and questions people have sometimes these days. And really, when I look at it like more on a consciousness level and advanced civilizations, that galactic civilization I interact with, um, most of the beings there are somewhat androgynous altogether. You were talking about this priestess energy in your own journey. What kind of woke you up to this priestess frequency? Um, Perhaps something that happened in your past lives or in ancient times?
Yeah, the priestess energy is really interesting. In 2004, I was living in London, and I did not like London, so I would go to Glastonbury, like, at any chance I got, and I ended up making friends with a lot of the locals there, and a high priestess kinda just spotted me and said, "You are a priestess." And I was like, "Yep, I am," because I knew I was. And she says, "I wanna ordain you as a priestess." And I went, "Okay, that would be great. I would that sounds fun." I already knew I was a priestess. I've been a priestess many lifetimes, but in this lifetime, I was recognized by this incredibly powerful high priestess, Samaria. And so she ordained me and she had me go through all these rituals and ceremonies. And one of them was walking in complete darkness over this hill, up on top of a mountain kind of thing with a church that was abandoned. And it was pitch black. It was scary, actually. And then I had to go in and just sit. And I was sitting in this church that was abandoned, and the energy was pretty eerie and by myself as an initiation into my priestesshood. So I'm sitting there in complete darkness, and Mary Magdalene, Isis, Jesus all came through, and it was really very powerful, and Sekhmet, an Egyptian goddess, and all these different very powerful energies came through and started downloading all this information. And part of this transmission activation was the balance of the masculine and the feminine energies. So acknowledging Jesus was just as important as acknowledging Mary Magdalene, and honoring Isis, the Egyptian goddess, was as important. And I feel like this is a really important thing to talk about because it is what we were talking about with the sacred divine feminine energy being that soft feminine energy, but also being the strong energy. Sekhmet is a very strong energy. and also Jesus, the sacred divine masculine energy. And so I was telling a friend about I've been ordained as a priestess, and she's, "You've always been a priestess." And I said, "I know, I have always been." And you know what? This is what I found too, is this is me, my goodness, 25 years ago, me and my cat, and we ended up being on the Wellington Guide. That is my little kitty that I had for 16 years, but it's like total priestess energy too. The priestess energy is really like the return of the priestess is really happening in a big way. And it is that direct conduit and energy, that connection to the sacred divine for women like yourself, being a shaman, like you're a shamaness or a shamanista is what you call it, right? It's being a shaman and being that feminine conduit of energy. And this is part of the awakening of the new feminine paradigm. But I brought it up to acknowledge that the sacred divine masculine is still very important. All of those energies are sacred and are awakening in each and every one of us.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Those characters, for sure, I work with a lot as well, especially Schamet
Mm.
channel or frequency, and that totally resonates. The strong, raw, and at the same time, she's very nurturing lioness, and it's very galactic too. It's just has both qualities that I resonate with, and Isis and yeah, Magdalene and Jesus have been communicating a lot with me. They have the twin
Yeah,
flame
yeah, you were
energy,
saying,
and
huh?
so and because
Cool.
I'm in a divine union with my twin, that energy is what's needed on the planet now to see them as the counterpart, right? Not just Jesus, but both of them.
Absolutely. That's the balance. And the goddess of music, dance, love, joy, sensual energy. She's the dancer, the weaver, but she's also a very strong lioness that is fighting for justice and for what is right in the world. And she's one that she's like the rebel and she rectifies justice and truth. And she's very strong. And so I think it's interesting that all those different kind of energies came through to say, this is what is emerging. This is the sacred, divine, new feminine paradigm that is awakening. How can we be vulnerable and soft and strong and honest and kind? So it's a lot to weave, but we can do it and we're doing it.
The summit is called Awaken the New Feminine in Paradigm of Leadership, right? What are these qualities of leadership that a female needs to cultivate, and what that future, this new paradigm looks like, in your opinion?
Yeah, so awaken the new feminine paradigm. It's not just about women stepping into their power. Of course, that is a big part of it because I am a feminist and I am leading the movement of empowering women to step into their power and their purpose. However, my little boys are like, "Mom, what about the men? What about the boys?" And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." So it's also the feminine within men too, and awakening their feminine qualities. What is the feminine qualities to me? Is being heart led, being a mom. Any mom knows that it's like she loves her children so much and she loves this planet so much and she wants to look after her children. She wants to look after the planet. It's nurturing, it's kind. It's not only soft, it's strong too because if a child runs into the road, the mom's not just going to be soft and sweet. She's going to be running after her child and grabbing the child and making sure the child doesn't get ran over. So it can be quite aggressive, but it's like nurturing, loving, kind, sweet, looking after the planet, looking after each other. A lot of Americans want to call it socialism, but is it really, do we have to put a word on it and be judgmental about it? Why don't we just all look after each other and look after the planet and look after the future generations to come? And so it's bigger than just women's empowerment. It's like humanity's it's my empowered vision of equality for men and women and humanity to unite. And at the center And the core and the foundation is love, kindness, truth, honesty, being a good human, doing good things for the planet. To me, it's like quite simple, but it's like I feel crucial for us to be birthing the new feminine paradigm for the survival and the continuation of Mother Earth and her people. I'm feeling a very strong passion for this equality. And if we don't, I'm a bit worried for our future and generations to come. Feels like there's a reckoning that needs to happen,
Yeah.
and people need to stop thinking about I in the little I and the little me, and it being I and me and whatever I want, and what is good for humanity, what is good for this planet. And that to me, people call it different things, awakening the new earth, awakening the new feminine paradigm. But to me, it's all the same.
I think it takes a certain level of courage to step up right now and be that leader in a world that is very ego based, not heart led. It's still from the mind. And I think we talking about teaching how to be more in the heart, in the feeling, the feminine of the leading by the heart, right? And being authentic, what you were mentioning, is not necessarily natural for some people because they still worried and very honestly in thinking about what others will think about them. So there's a lot of judgment, and so it's hard for them to be authentic. So learning how to be vulnerable and release judgments towards yourself, judgments towards others, not care about those judgments and just be yourself. But even if others might not fully understand yet what that looks like or what it is, and just continue shining your light. And I think the leadership quality of it is just leading the way with the heart. And even if others still not fully on our train of the heart and the light, knowing that's the direction we lead in our generation, but also the generations behind us. We have boys, have a boy, and all we can do as moms is for them to be fully in their hearts. I believe this new children are here to change that, to bring that frequency, this paradigm that we're talking about.
Yeah, and just to add to the being a heart-led leader, that's what I advertise the summit as, is a heart-led leadership. But love is not always so kind at the same time. Like we go, "Oh, heart-led, love, kindness," but sometimes it can be sharp and short and curt, and any mother that has teenage boys understands that sometimes you have to put some boundaries down, and it's because you love them and you're looking after them. But it's not always kind, right? It's sometimes can be tough. They call it tough love. And so to me, stepping into the sacred divine feminine leadership is sometimes calling out in order to call in as well. And if we're going to make a change in this world, we have to we have to take action, right? And sometimes if someone is upsetting the apple cart and creating a big mess, like how are we going to confront that and change it? Of course, we wanna inspire change, and feminine leadership is inspiring others, but sometimes it is a bit of tough love as well. So I just wanted to say that it is love, it is heart-led, but it can also be a bit tough to make change, and I'm feeling that call in a big way. And how do we navigate that? And this is why it is the new feminine paradigm of leadership is, of course, we have had women in power in the past, and it was more of a matriarchal society. And now we've been dealing with patriarchy and more of a masculine society. But the new feminine paradigm, it's new because we haven't done it yet. Like we're all still figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out too. How can we move forward with that? new feminine paradigm. And I'll share a story with you for an example, because it's sometimes hard to understand, and it's even hard for me to communicate. But I had some curtains that I wanted my husband to hang up because he's really good with the power tools. Like, I have certain things I'm better with, and he's got his strengths, okay? He's really good. He can just get up there and put the curtains up within minutes where it would take me over an hour. So I'm like, "Honey, can you do this?" And he didn't do it, and he didn't do it, and then I kept getting upset because he wasn't doing it. So then I hands on hips went in there and went, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," and then it got done, and he did it. But then he was all like pouting and, like, sulking because I got quite strong, aggressive, right, to get it done. And this is what I mean, like, sometimes we have to step into that kind of aggressive energy to make things happen, right? Because it wouldn't have happened otherwise. However, it then didn't happen in such a nice way. It was that power over energy that you're talking about, which is not sacred divine feminine at all. Like, it is very masculine. And then I felt terrible. I was like, "Oh, goodness me, that was totally power over energy." And a week later, a similar thing happened. And this time, instead of hands on hips and getting upset about it, I said, "Babe, I really wanna talk to you." And he said, "Okay." And I said, "Yeah, can we just sit down?" And he said, "Yep." And I looked at him deep into his eyes, and I put one hand on my heart and one hand on my belly to ground myself, because it's still new to step into our power as women and not be like patriarchal and power over and all that old energy, right? So I hand on my
Right.
heart, hand on my belly, and I said, "Honey, it would mean so much to me if you did blah, 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 blah. And I don't wanna handle it like I did last week with the curtains. That didn't feel good." But and he goes and he looked at me, and he looked me deep into my eyes, and he says, "Would it really mean that much to you?" And I said, "Yeah, it would really make me happy." And he goes, "Oh, okay, I'll do it." And I was like, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Yeah." And then he did it. And then it was so loving and so kind, and there was a good energy, and then he felt good, and I felt great, and it was the absolute opposite of that old patriarchal power over leadership where we make somebody do something, and the heart-led, divine sacred divine feminine way of connecting in, and then he felt inspired, like he wanted to do it, and it was such a different reality, and with that story, I feel like that's where we're moving away from that very dictatorship, "You will do this or you will be grounded, blah, 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 blah," kind of way of authority and leadership to this sacred divine feminine that inspires people to want to do things, and that is the kind of leadership and the kind of human that I am inspired to be. So when I say stepping into our empowered, sacred, divine, feminine energy and power, that's what I mean. It's heart led, it's connecting in with yourself, with the other person, and it's a completely different energy. And things do get done when you do it that way. And it's incredible. It was a huge breakthrough moment for me. And I'm still learning how to do it every time. Like, I don't always get it right, but that is what I aspire to be like. And if we can all do that, can you imagine this world? Be incredible.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that example. I think it really makes it very real and concrete in our daily life and how we can catch this moment. I love that you caught that moment. And I know that feeling when you over dominate and you get it done, but it's just like that yucky feeling after that because others upset, you energetically also drained. I don't think energetically it even supports the relationship. And the children also very sensitive. And they retaliate right away. Mom don't yell at me, blah, blah, blah. So I think when we come from that place of the feminine and of the heart, then yeah, like for me, it's actually been today, like my kid doesn't want to do his homework, but instead of yell him, get your stuff done, it's come downstairs, sit next to me, show me what you have to do, let me help you. Where are you struggling? Instead of, oh, you got to get this done, I'm more like asking where the problems are, where can I assist? you're not in this alone. We're in this together. Don't feel overwhelmed. From that place, then the child always thanks you at the end because then they feel like there's unity, there's support. And that's something we were not grown up in environments where we necessarily taught that. We were in society where it's just kind of dominance and authority seemed like it was working, but it wasn't really.
Absolutely. And there was a school that one of my children were in, and it was all that top down authority ruled by stick, not carrot. And it doesn't work. Like, it really doesn't work. The kids just rebel, they misbehave more. And it was just, this was when we lived in Sweden. And I took my son out of that school because I was like, oh my goodness, this is so old paradigm. Like, teaching with stick instead of carrot, and my kids do not respond to that at all because 'cause I'm a new feminine paradigm mom, and so they're like, "This is awful," and so I took them out and I put them in another school, and it was all, like, beautiful, ruled by carrot. They had rewards, they talked to the kids, they actually asked them, like, "How are you doing?" They cared about them. They were loving, they were heart-led, they were kind, and I watched my son just skyrocket, just excel, and it was such a huge, obvious difference in paradigm, and it's such a good analogy of explaining it. They had this beautiful reward system through all these different things, and it was like a circle, it was like a community, it was heart-led, it was loving, it was kind. When there were issues, of course, they then like what I was talking about is you also then sometimes have to be like, "Oi, that's not okay." And there was a situation where that happened and they just put a stop to it right away. And but they were kind while doing it. That's the other part is you can be strong and powerful and kind at the same time. And that's like nonviolent communication stuff, which I love. I think that should be given to everyone in the school system for free training on nonviolent communication, because that is very heart led and a great example of being strong and speaking your truth and having your boundaries, but also being kind and heart led. It's balance that we're all learning, but it's so crucial, especially for the kids.
I totally agree with you. I don't think the school system teaches any of the emotional development. And so unless the child picks it up from home, many just end up being lost, especially teenagers. Uh, they don't really fully know how to be themselves or express themselves. And the communication is a big part of it. I love that you mentioned the nonviolent communication because I've been learning it and trying to apply it in my life. It's something that everyone should look into, express themselves from that place, which is through the feeling. When you say this as a reflection, I feel this. So when the more you start talking about the heart, the feelings and not the mind, then it brings you into your body, it brings you into realization of your experience, makes you more present in the experience versus reactionary, more from a place of response, which I think is where most of the society now is operating from, is like constant reacting. And there's so much noise out there from politics to everything else. And people are so quick to judge and so quick to react. What's your recommendation, Shamit, with that? Because there's so much polarization right now. And I'm seeing friends even who react so quickly and so quick in judgment when even to my podcast, something they might have not liked, and all of a sudden they categorize it into that specific bucket. I guess it's the human nature to categorize, and it teaches us to be patient with that and compassionate. Curious your thoughts on how to handle that.
Having a sacred pause is always a good idea.
Mm.
But this is gold when it comes to parenting as well, and I learned this one when my kids were toddlers. They're now teenagers. It was gold when I figured out that I didn't need to say no right away, even though I knew I was gonna say no. Like, it was definitely no. But I learned to take a sacred pause, and what I would say instead of no is, "I'll think about that." And, that
Mm.
is gold. Like, it gives you a pause to take a moment. It makes them feel like, oh, she's actually thinking about it. So then they feel considered. So then they soften. And there's just this pause. And especially when you're raising kids and they're toddlers, it's not a good idea to say no right away, because then what if you do change your mind? What if it is, oh, now that I've heard a bit more information, it's harder to come back from a no, because then they don't believe your no anymore. It's never ever a good idea to react. Now, we all are guilty of it from time to time, and we're not perfect. And those of you that are listening, if you've been reacting, it's okay. It's just like part of being a human. But if you can just take a sacred pause and say, "Oh," inside you're going, "No," but you say, "Oh, let me think about that. Yeah, I'll consider that. Let me give it some time and sit with that." And then if you can sit with it, then one, you can calm down too, right? Instead of being heated, then you can just calm down a bit. And then in that sacred pause, it's a really good idea to get out of your own perception and think about and feel into their perception of where they're coming from. And I'm a trained belief coach, and our beliefs make up the paradigm in which we see, feel, and are in. And so we're all living in different paradigms depending on how we grew up, what our cultures were, where we're from, how our family thought, all the generational, intergenerational patterns, thought forms. And so we are literally, all of us are seeing things very differently. And that's why there's so much strife, is because one person is seeing it this way and another person's seeing it a completely different way. They've done studies on it, even colors. People see colors differently. The other day, my son, he goes, "No, mom, it's purple." I was like, "No, it's blue." And he's, "No, it's purple." I was like, wow, that's so interesting. And so if we can have a little bit of humor as well, like just not take ourselves so seriously and go like, "Huh, I wonder if the way they're seeing it is just so completely different, and maybe I have something to learn." So having some humility and being humble and getting out of our own way of our attachments. And we all do it. Like we get attached because that's what we see. And we're going, "Wait, what?" And if we could just take that sacred pause to see and feel things in a different way, then we can start to develop some compassion and some kindness so that we can open ourselves up to being able to see things differently and not thinking that we know everything. That's a big one I've been learning. I'm getting ready to turn 51, and I used to think I had it all figured out. Now I'm like, "Oh, Aristotle was right. The more I know, the less I know."
I feel the same way. It's like the deeper you go into the rabbit
Yeah.
holes, not even one hole, then less you feel, because that's the paradox of it all. And it's like the creation and the destruction. It's like back into the void of where all and nothing, and it's all valid. And I love your point about perspectives, because I think people confuse sometimes perception versus perspective. Perception is how I receive this world through my senses, through my upbringing, through my belief systems, through my traumas, because traumas play a big part of it. And there are patterns that maybe haven't been worked out. And then you perceive in the reality because of those traumas that haven't been worked out yet. So to recognize there is your specific design, but there is layers of the onion as well. Then the perspective is really to step outside of yourself, right? Take that eagle flight to see the situation from the mountaintop, to get see the different angles of the situation, whatever that is, and encourage yourself to try to see the different angles of the situation. And for me, that's the dimensionality. When people ask me, what's the difference between third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension? It's like looking at the same thing. Here's my bottle, but then if I rotate it here, now I see there's a picture on it. And on this side, there's something else on it. In the ceremony, I'm able to all of a sudden analyze my life from this angle and this new thing came up. I'm like, yeah, because now you have bigger perspective. You stepped outside of that broken record and now you're all of a sudden able to view it in a different type of way. Like you said, and the golden rule of a pause, I love that too. I
Yeah.
the many deep breaths that are needed.
It's a multi-dimensional world that we live in. I really believe we all came here to experience this paradox and this multi-dimensionality, and it's a lot to navigate. It's a dance, right? With my leadership summit, for example, I had the exact same questions that I ask every keynote speaker. And it's just amazing how different the answers are. And that is fascinating to me. There's this whole perception, and everyone's got these different perceptions in the way of seeing things, but it would be a homogeneous world if we all saw it the same way. So this interesting interwoven fabric of perception is so interesting to me. And just to highlight like these tools that I'm talking about, the sacred pause and being able to see things from different perspectives. Wow, they work out really well at dinner parties. I went to a dinner party a couple months ago, and there were different types of people with different perceptions and different ideologies and different political positions and everything. And I just stayed neutral in the whole thing. And there was this interwoven dance where people felt really comfortable opening up and just being authentic and speaking their truth and speaking their mind because I did not react and feel like I had to protect my point of view or plant my point of view onto somebody else, but just to be. And it was such a beautiful evening, and I thanked everyone. I didn't know one person at the dinner party, it was her birthday. I Everyone else I just met, and it was so amazing. I thanked everyone for all the conversations we had because everyone was seen, heard, and were able to speak all their different truths, and there was a lot going on, and it felt empowering. And I thought to myself, "Wow, this is the new paradigm where conflicting thoughts, conflicting paradigms can all speak to each other and can be in harmony with each other." 'Cause we had lots of not to get into politics, but we had lots of different sides all at the dinner table, and it was so much fun to actually stay open to, like, why did you vote that way? Why do you believe that way? And to really expand my own perception, and it was really fascinating, and it made sense, and to me, of why we have 2 sides of the coin and all the different shades in between. Can we honor all perceptions? Can we honor all beliefs? Can we hold space for that? And I think that is the pathway to world peace, is instead of trying to get everyone to believe one way, can we honor everyone? And I know it's a big thing to say, but I witnessed it at this dinner party and it blew me away. It like really opened me up to the new feminine paradigm way of doing things and being in the world. It comes to honoring each other, even when we don't necessarily agree with them.
So, like, coming to the place of it's okay if I don't agree with you. I'm just here to listen to your point of view. And I love what you said about neutrality. That's a position I hold too. And I feel it takes a level of conscious effort to hold that position because that position requires, yeah, multi-threading. It is very multidimensional and ability to hold multiple truths at the same time takes a certain level of container of light that one can hold because most of people tend to polarize either this way or this way. There's no like the middle. It's hard for someone to sit in the middle and be like, oh, both truths are valid. And I'm okay with that. And I can see both perspectives and more than just two. And ultimately, as Stephen Greer says, we're still civilization zero. from a galactic sense.
Yeah,
So
but these are the weavers, right? These are the
those
weavers,
are the
and these are the new paradigm leaders that
right.
are able to weave the polarization back together. Like that is new paradigm leadership, exactly what you're talking about. And it does require a lot of love, being a heart led leader for sure, holding that love.
First, that love within yourself, because you really have to step into your own self love and fully love and accept yourself and all aspects of yourself. And then you can hold that for others. For me, the new feminine paradigm is when both the feminine and the masculine fully love themselves. Like the self love aspect is key,
Oh, it's
foundational to
foundational. Yeah.
it's foundational to the civilization that moving from zero to one and two and more and part of Galactic Federation, because for them, they come from that place, from a place of sovereignty and acceptance. And in order to accept others, we need to first accept ourselves.
That was the first level of work that I did in my 20s, early 20s, was learning how to love myself. And Louise Hay, she was the pioneer. And yeah, definitely. I feel like that is the foundation. Absolutely. 100%. And there's layers and layers of the self love process. Like, I don't think it ever ends.
Beautiful. Tell us more about the summit, how someone can sign up for it, the dates for it. I'll encourage everyone who's listening to this podcast to tune in because it's a really incredible lineup that Sean is bringing together.
Yeah, so you can find out more at awakenthenewfeminineparadigm.com. It's a beautiful website there. I've done some videos. I even did something that was a dream of mine for 3 years, which is I have a dream speech inspired by Martin Luther King Jr., one of my favorite leaders on the planet, as well as all the amazing, powerful movers and shakers and women rebels, change agents that have led the feminist movement. And I created a video on there so you can watch it there. It's about 18 minutes long, but it's something I've been thinking about doing for 3 years. And I'm really happy with it. And I actually wrote it and I sent it to Oprah and I sent it to a whole bunch of magazines and stuff. And just putting it out there of instead of I have a dream, I have an empowered vision of equality. And it is, what I believe in, the equality of men and women, humanity coming together. We don't want to leave the men behind. We love our men. I love my husband and my two boys. Oh my goodness. Like, it's about the equality of men and women on this planet. And so we've got some male speakers in the summit too. They really embody the divine masculine energy and they love the goddess. They love the sacred divine feminine. And they hold that energy and they celebrate that energy. They're shoulder to shoulder with the feminist movement. Like they are all for the feminist movement because they don't see it as a threat. They don't see it as a power over energy because it isn't. Feminism is not about having more power than men. Like it's about honoring the power that we all have within. And it's going to be a free summit. We've got, I think there's 27 speakers now and growing. So more incredible new thought leaders are stepping in. There's a lot of people that have a lot to say. And so you get free new thought leadership talks, inspiration, transmissions directly to your inbox once you sign up for it and register. And that is completely 100% free. There is a paid version of it, and that is a 3-day workshop with the summit speakers in Zoom. And it's a workshop, and we're all going to be giving something of value, more workshoppy, and having journaling questions and meditations, and everyone's offering something different. I'm doing my Transforming Wounds to Wisdom to Superpowers manifestation session and an Awaken the Oracle Within, which is teaching you about intuition and psychic abilities and stepping in to your power as a sacred divine feminine new thought leader. And so if you feel called to do that, that is $97 and that goes towards all the profits go to helping the awareness and prevention of human trafficking. which is something that I feel very passionate about. I live in New Zealand, but I was born in New Mexico, and I had not been back since I was 3. I went on a spiritual journey the year before last, and I went to my birthplace, and I've never been there as an adult, and when I arrived at the airport, I was a bit in shock because on the bathroom stalls, it's like all this warning about human trafficking, and even on the soap bars in the hotel rooms were like hotline numbers for human trafficking. I was like, "Oh my god, this is intense." And then this woman came up to me the first day I arrived and at a Mexican restaurant, and she says, "Oh my god, are you traveling by yourself?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, you gotta be careful. Human trafficking is a real thing here." And I said, "Oh, I'm 50 years old. They won't want me." And she goes, "Oh, yes, they will. Are you kidding me? They'll just, if you go to a rest stop, they'll put something over your face and throw you in a truck." I was like, "What? Oh my god." New Zealand is so safe. So I was like, "Oh my goodness." So I realized very quickly that in some parts of the world, it is a very real, dangerous thing. And so then I started investigating it more and more. And the rose colored glasses have come off. And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is a really intense thing." And so I really feel passionate. The last summit was about helping the rainforests and women stepping into their power, and this one is human trafficking, just bringing more awareness. I don't think that people are really aware of how bad it is and the prevention of it. I always try to do something making impact and making change on the planet because I feel like I'm here to raise consciousness on the planet through everything I'm doing, my client work, my oracle cards, my books, my whatever I'm doing, like sitting next to someone on an airplane or a train, like, I'm always doing my healing work, and so this is part of it. I feel very passionate about it, and so you can do this workshop, which is 3 days with incredible empowering new thought leaders and help yourself become stronger and grow, but then at the same time, that money is gonna go into helping with the prevention and awareness of human trafficking. So this is what being a leader is to me, is about making a difference in the world where we can, like actually doing something, not just saying we're gonna do something, but taking action is an important part of leadership, period. But sacred divine feminine leadership as well is making impact in the world in whatever capacity we can. So this is my soul path purpose work.
Thank you for breaking it down, and thank you for bringing attention to the human trafficking. It's a real thing in some areas. And I know a friend of mine has been working also with the Native American reservations, and that's a whole gamut of things happening that is in our backyard, and no one is even aware that this is going on. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And this is going to be April 25th or 27th. Please go to the website and register. I'm going to be on the summit too. I'm very excited to participate and be part of this beautiful collective. Thank you so much for being on this podcast with me, for sharing this conversation about the new feminine. May everyone who listened to this episode gets more inspired, sign up for the Leadership Summit, and continue cultivating those leadership skills that's so needed in this new earth reality. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. We welcome you to join upcoming Sedona retreat April 11th through April 15th in the magic lands of Arizona. Bell Rock is one of the most potent vortexes. It is interdimensional portal. We're going to connect to the frequencies, the sound healing, and have incredible experience of dancing, Kundalini activation, breath work, meditations, and much more. Sound healing is essential to expanding our consciousness, but also activating those special codes. If this is resonating with you and you want to be part of our intimate and really powerful group that we're going to be co-creating with you, find out more information at quantumcodesretreat.com. Reach out to me for more questions. I'm Diana Divine, and keep connecting with your higher self.